Hey everyone, Aaron here. Welcome back to another anime request review. This I'm gonna consider one of the special anime request reviews in the sense that this is like part one of a two-part request. This is something I've never done before, but I figured I'm gonna start doing just this one time, unless other people come to me with this kind of concept. Now, Granasha, who this request goes out to, man, thanks again for actually giving me the idea to do this in the first place. Um, did not know there was a second movie for Tekken. He knew about the first one. We actually had a funny story about it, including some quote unquote bath scenes in the anime. If you've never seen this movie, you'll understand it. Unfortunately, not as well as someone who has, but I'll explain a little joke in a couple seconds. But he didn't know the second movie actually was what came out. It was like another animated movie, more so recently. So I kind of thought, you know what? I'm gonna review not just the first one for him, but I'll review the second one also as well. So this is the first movie. This is the anime film which came out in, I want to say, 1998. Yeah, 1998. According to my notes. And I'll tell you guys right now, the first Tekken movie was a staple of what anime, I guess, was trying to do back in its time period. This is when I think at the time it was the turning point of anime starting to get more serious and trying to figure out what it wanted to do per se. Which, going back to the bath scene, that was a scene that was kind of explicit for the movie itself, but it wasn't explicit at the same time. Like, it wasn't really that big of a deal. And what's funny about that was it's just that you started seeing that a lot more in anime from that point on, of those kind of quote unquote bath scenes or those kind of moments of explicit content without being too over the top or raunchy. Now, if you guys don't know, and this is not a big deal if you guys don't know, but Tekken actually is based off a very long running franchise of fighting games that came out on the PS1 and all the way up now to the current. It's not current gen yet, but they have one announced for the current gen for PS4 and Xbox One and all that. But it's a long, long running fighting series, and one of my personal favorites. I grew up with Tekken, and I consider myself actually really good at Tekken. It's one of the few fighting games I consider myself good at. But yeah, I've always been a big, big fan of Tekken, and it comes to of course, then to realize that I would of course see the anime when it first came out. I saw this not when it first came out per se, but I saw it relatively within the same time frame that it came out. I think I saw it because this was 1998, so that means I was 8 years old. I want to say that I saw it maybe 2 or 3 years later, which isn't really that much longer. I bought it on VHS. I remember that. If you guys don't know what VHS is, it's okay. Don't feel bad. A lot of people don't know what VHS tapes are anymore. Um, but I'll tell you, Tekken, the main concept of it, so you guys understand fully, is it revolves around Kazuma Mishima, or Kazuya Mishima, who actually is this guy who was trained by his father, who was very harsh and very cruel to him, but he became a really tough fighting guy who then enters a tournament. And the whole franchise runs off that concept. The movie plays around with that concept a little bit. You can clearly tell where they took inspiration for the tournament, but at the same time went with it a whole different way. So our main story though starts off with Kazuya Mishima as a young boy being thrown off a cliff, and it was like his initial ceremony of becoming a man, according to his father. Like, that's how, if he survived being thrown off a cliff, he could survive anything. It skips ahead then later on where it's like when he's actually an adult now, and here he's meeting up with another girl who's named Jun, and she is investigating a specific case per se of a tournament going kind of wrong, where it's more so being used as a experiment facility to train something. They don't know what it is yet. He also meets another character named Lei Fulong, and it's just the concept that now he's kind of embedded into this whole. Well, I want to challenge myself because I know these guys are going to be the best fighters around, but he also wants to help them out a little bit here, not because of actually any reasons of them asking for help, but more so because he's selfish and again wants to fight. He wants to show his mettle essentially. Now, Tekken suffers from what I consider really old anime syndrome, in that when I watched it the first time, and by the way, I recently actually, now it's funny that we even talked about this. I watched this not that long ago. I think it was maybe, I want to say 3 years ago. I saw it on TV again, and it's not that hard to remember this type of movie because it's really pretty cookie cutter in a lot of the concepts of it. It's guy goes to a tournament, guy fights various characters, and in the end something happens. A lot of those I think 1990s anime movies were like that. I hate to say. I mean, if you looked like we were also talking about Fatal Fury, me and Granasha, we were talking about Fatal Fury, the movie, and if you think about that type of movie, it was almost the same concept. The fighting tournament, the kind of little bit here story here and there, but really it was not based off of solely the games. It just more so augments what the games are based off of. If that makes any sense, I hope that guys, I hope that makes sense to you guys. But it's harder to kind of explore the concepts of older anime, trying not to be so biased towards it, because if I was to go off current gen stuff, like the stuff that we see nowadays in the anime world and movies and all that, Tekken is very low rated on that if you think about it. But if you're going off of what it originally was, it was something that was very different for its time period. Something that you have to explain it in a way that people understand. That's how anime was. It was like this and that. It kept to a cookie cutter mold on purpose. Now, I would say the worst part of Tekken, the animation, is not the animation. The actual animation for it back then, I'm considering the review for being back then, was actually very good. And even today, it's not that bad. It looks old, but it looks pretty cool. It has some blood, violence, the typical stuff that these movies were trying to convey. Again, the cookie cutter mold. All those movies that were based off fighting games back in the day were always like this. They always had that kind of just enough raunchiness to be explicit, but at the same time, not be too explicit that it would get like those R ratings. It was more so like just under the radar for them, if that makes any sense. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Whenever I record these in the morning, I always have like sinus problems in the morning. But what's funny about this movie is that in terms of actual storytelling, there's not very much story here. That's probably one of the weakest parts of it, is that it's very, very generic. Again, the guy going on to fight tournament people and fight the secret organization behind the tournament. You saw stuff like that in Bruce Lee time period. It wasn't, and that was way, way back. So I mean, this is nothing new. This is cliched to the max. But overall, though, Tekken is pretty good. Voice acting was okay for back then. Animation was very solid for back then. The plot, again, cliche, but it was at least enjoyable enough that you can understand what's going on, and it felt fun to watch. Like Tekken is a movie I've seen a few times, and it's never really a bad movie to watch. It's enjoyable. It's not that long. I think it's around like 90 minutes long or something like that. Not even. No, actually, according to my notes, it's 60 minutes long. So even better. It's only an hour long, not an hour and a half. But it's something that's when it's over, it's over. That's it. You watch it, you're done. You think about it maybe once in a blue moon, but you really don't dwell on it. It's not going to win best animated movie per se of anything. That's why if I had to review Tekken, the animation, the first movie, mind you, this is the first movie, I would have to give it a solid B minus. It is a good anime even now, or anime movie, I should say. It suffers from various things. You might, if you really hate older movies, you're not gonna like this one. It's not gonna change your mind to that. But it has some cool stuff. It really does. It has some nice fighting scenes. It has some nice animation to it. Voice acting is not that bad. Story is followable to the most part. It's not a bad movie. You can enjoy it. You can find it. Trust me, I'm pretty sure you can find this anywhere, cheap or not. On Amazon, I've seen it before for like, I think $10. Not even. It's really cheap. It's old. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoy this. Coming out probably, I want to say Tuesday, will be the second part of this, which is going to be the new CGI movie Blood Vengeance, which I plan on reviewing. And I'll tell you guys right now, just because it's a new movie does not mean it's going to get a higher score. I'll tell you that right now. Anyways, guys, until our paths cross again, I hope you guys enjoy this review. As always, have a good one, everyone. Bye.